Welcome to this week's episode, Totally Oblivious podcast. I pulled a moist critical and just decided to start recording after taking a shower.
Are you gonna take a shit while making a fucking YouTube short or no?
Anyway, I was.
He does that. I'm not joking. He does that,
I
by the way. He,
I
he
think
takes shits.
I think I did remember seeing that.
And what happened? He was like, "Oh, my ass was a lot louder today," or some bullshit. It's like, what the fuck? He was a weird guy. Weird dude.
What a guy!
No.
What an
He was a
absolute
weird-
lad. Well, how are you today?
For the most part, pretty good. Why did I get a Discord bleep? Yeah, I've been doing fine. It wasn't a crazy eventful day for the most part. We're recording this late at night, so like the whole day is gone.
Whole day.
Really nothing. I recorded a little bit. My video, the two videos I uploaded, have done well, at least decent. I don't know. It's been fine. I'm trying to record all tomorrow or finish what I had that I did today, but past that, it's been chill. I was playing Monster Hunter and like I'm Monster rank 121 now, and then I just I
Crazy.
went down the TikTok rabbit hole and realized, wait a minute, after 100% affinity, it doesn't stack any higher. I was like, fuck.
Oh
So then
shoot! So you just had unnecessary.
I had like 20 or like I think on average with all my builds. I started doing math. Me with math regularly. Math when it comes to video games. I'm a genius. And then I was like, I changed all my builds, everything. I think I was testing everything but my dual blades. I think for the most part they're all decent now because I had to redo everything, and then I started looking at opinions about different like perks and stuff. But I think for the most part, I think I was able to figure everything out. And I was playing with Joey, and Joey was fucking playing whatever he wanted to play. But I was like, I was figuring out how to like properly mesh long swords, and then great swords were a bit different. It's really weird people's opinions, but for the most part, it really does seem like most builds are just exploit weakness and then max might, and then everything else is just like, what do you want to do?
Yeah, pretty much. That's pretty much exactly what I run to with the Switch
Yeah.
X.
Yeah, I think with the
Just
Switch
more
X,
part breaker.
yeah, it's. I'd have to open up mine if we were gonna do that, but that's what I was really just doing today. I haven't really had any like big creative vision. I guess technically this is the first podcast with my bookshelf in it, so that's a thing.
Ooh,
So
that's
yeah.
nice.
Did I ever tell you I made a bookshelf?
No, you didn't.
Yeah, hold on. Let me see if
You made it, or like?
I bought it at the store.
Okay.
But yeah, there it is. And has all my minis and stuff. And oh, I guess I technically haven't been able to show. Hold on. I did get into painting, or not getting into miniatures. Getting into them.
Oh,
I've yet to paint them because I'm a perfectionist, so I'm like
you
I'm
want it
looking
to
for
be
certain
perfect.
Fuck yeah, I do.
Yeah,
So,
I get that. I actually do understand.
so what I need to buy like an off-white paint because I was going on Reddit. By the way, my girlfriend's favorite site. I have never mentioned that on the podcast, but it's hilarious.
She loves Reddit.
Fucking, she has Reddit friends.
That's crazy. I never would have thought.
It was it's insane. She loves Reddit, but
She
I was
she
looking on
always gave me the vibe of more of an Instagram girl.
fuck no.
She's a Redditor.
She's not a Redditor. She's not like having in-depth discussions, but like if she needs something, she goes to Reddit.
Mhm.
So that's what she does.
Oh, I don't think I ever showed you my new desk totodile. Ah! Look at, I got a little buddy.
Little buddy.
Got a little buddy there now.
Little guy. A little guy.
He's just a little guy.
Just a little doodad. But
Yeah.
other than that, no. Got my books. I guess I also starting up a little like Warhammer reading collection. I haven't read any of these yet, but I've also been doing that. Big book guy.
Buying books without reading them, greatest hobby.
Yes. Past that, nothing really much. YouTube's, I guess, if we're talking about anime, JoJo Day is started today, and it will go on to like sometime into April. It's called JoJo Day, but it's lasting basically a whole month. And a
JoJo's
lot of,
celebration.
basically, but everybody's like, they only ever do this to announce an anime, so everybody's just waiting for Steel Ball Run. And
Nice.
I'm begging, I'm pleading, give me weekly, please.
Yeah.
So I can properly like make YouTube content and feel like I'm actually a part of something that I'm not trying to forcefully build up.
Makes sense.
Other than that, you were okay. You need to explain to me why you were gone for like the whole fucking day. So we had to record at 10 o'clock at night. What were you reporting on that you needed to be out to like 9?
Well, first I had to go cover a tennis game at 3.
Okay.
And that lasted until like 5.
Okay.
And then I had a little bit of free time that we might have been able to record then, but I didn't want to have to cut ourselves short at any point. And I was also starving because it was like freezing outside. For some reason, spring cold is significantly colder than winter cold. I don't understand it. Like the March cold makes me more cold than negative 10-degree weather cold. And I think it's the wind. I think it's just the wind chill that does it. And just the ill preparation for the cold. But man, it was cold out there today. So I was starving.
I went out from my house for a little bit, but I remember a few days. I like this type of weather. It was sunny a few days ago, but like when the wind hits you just right, and then you're just walking, it feels good. I like this. I like my favorite type of weather condition is when the sun is in the sky and you can feel its heat, but then there's still fucking like cold ass wind. I love
That does
in
feel good,
between
actually.
late March and early April. Favorite time of the year for me because it just feels nice.
It's pretty good, but you know, I'm a big late April fan. Like that late April where it's like I'd like this time of year more if the plants were growing a little more. Because there's no flowers, the grass is still kind of dead from winter. But once you get to that mid to late April, it's just like everything's starting to get lush. There's cherry blossoms
And then you complain about the fucking trees fucking.
No, that's May. April, perfect. May, dead.
It's your birth month too. It makes it funny.
It's literally May and June is like, all right, I better prepare for death.
Are you actually allergic to them, or you're just like, what is it?
I'm pretty sure because at one point I did question it, but then I was out at my cousin's wedding in like early June, and those cottons started snowing down, and I was like, that's probably fine. And I literally had the worst reaction to that. I had like a massive migraine. I was coughing and sneezing. It like felt like I had a cold, but it wasn't a cold. It was definitely allergies. So those cottons, they just don't like me.
So is it specifically like cotton or like just their, what's the word? What's the technical word? Pollen. There it is.
Pollen?
Is it the pollen? Like, what is it for you?
It has to be that there's pollen on the cottons that gets me sick. That's because weird. Like the cotton itself, like it doesn't touch me, but there's something in the air that I breathe when they're around. There's something in the air that I breathe when they're around that just gets me dead.
That's just, I hate that. We've talked about it before, but I hate. I have to talk quiet. Like there's my parents are sleeping, but my brother's gaming, So I gotta welcome to the ASMR video.
Welcome to the world's quietest podcast.
That sounds like a Markiplier bit.
That was his world's quietest videos.
Really? Was it? That's why I think I remembered it from when I said it. But I'm having a brain fart. Fuck. What was I talking about?
Allergies.
Oh, I said it in the past of the podcast. Allergies are fucking stupid. One of the greatest stupid consumptions of the human body, but animals in general. Allergies are weird. Like other animals, like sneeze and shit.
It's
to
just
like
such a dumb thing to exist.
Yeah, it's dumb.
Yeah.
Anyway, what is today's topic?
Well, at first we weren't really gonna have a topic, but then something crossed my mind today that just made me kind of change thought process, I guess. So I'll try to explain this without like getting too in detail, but to just kind of give you an idea of where my head's at. So I ran into someone that I haven't seen in a long time today, and I just had a conversation with them, and later I find out like the reason why I haven't seen them in a long time, and like, or I guess not the reason why I haven't seen them in a long time, but like what's gone on with them since I last saw them. And basically it sounds like I said, I'm trying to give as little detail as possible so it doesn't I'm not stepping on any toes or anything, but it sounds like some people might have treated this people bad for pretty much no reason, which caused them to not be part of they weren't part of the group that I originally knew them from anymore. Let's just say that, because of some sort of incident that occurred.
Okay.
And it just kind of got my brain clunking, looking back on a lot of experiences I've had with certain groups and being like, you know, kind of going back to even our Heaven or Hell podcast that we did, where we determined whether or not we were worthy of God's presence. But I was like, what makes a person good or bad? Or is there even even good and bad?
Oh, we're recycling an old argument, but now it's bigger.
Yeah. Expanding upon it.
So
because like you can see, I guess to give this real quick before you give yours, you can see that there's people in the world who are, I'm pretty sure I've said this before too, that there's like people in the world who are genuinely do a lot of bad things, but they also do like something really, really good. But then there's people who do constantly good things, but then they do things really, really bad. And it's like, how, do those people, like, do those actions, which actions truly determine the morality of that person? Or should we even at all be determining morality of other people?
Damn, you okay there. Hold on, Nietzsche. Hold on. I gotta fucking throw my fucking
Give your thoughts. Give your thoughts.
Hold on, I gotta twirl my fucking mustache and fucking open up Zoomer Thurman real quick. Oh god, I didn't fuck. I should have been. I was so if it caught me when I was like this, I would have been like, that is an interesting one because okay, we're going to use an example here. Transformers 1. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on what you're looking at, if you're a Decepticon, let's just say, choose any one of them.
Yeah.
Fuck, maybe even not the recent comics. They really aren't like that. In the eyes of the Decepticons, I guess more or less most of the continuity of Transformers, when the Decepticons look at Megatron, they see something just. For the most part, if it's more of a political story rather than just like a villain of the week kind of format where like Megatron's just like cartoonishly evil, but if it's more political, it's a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
So in the eyes of the Decepticons, Megatron is seen as like this righteous, not protector, but like revolutionist by proxy. And for the most part, most Decepticons, depending on the continuity, are workers who have been abused to hell and high water. Just in Transformers 1 in specific, they're not allowed to transform. They're only used for slave labor. Basically, and maybe this is where we can do the moral argument, the killing, the bisecting, technically, of Sentinel Prime, right? Is it Sentinel Prime?
Yeah,
right?
Sentinel Prime.
Okay, yeah. Sentinel Prime.
Or just Sentinel. He's not a Prime.
Real. Sentinel was justified, technically. Because it's like, you enslaved. There's a lot of Transformers, shockingly. I think one time I saw in one of the comics that they have like trillions of just Transformers on Cybertron. So like, you're enslaving a majority of the population, a massive majority of the population to just slave labor. Mm-hmm. So when Megatron rises up and becomes a Decepticon and is now fighting a political war, in the eyes of the Decepticons, that is technically just. And if you look at a historical perspective, if you want to like maybe do some like esoteric reading of it, not esoteric, but like a real life political look at it, Megatron wasn't wrong in that, because politically and like on a technicality, right, it's not wrong. That man destroyed thousands of lives, and technically, because it's a movie, we really don't know the details. If it was a book or a TV show, maybe it would have gone a little bit more into it. But like, what were the workers' conditions? He probably killed hundreds of thousands of people for his own benefit, just to keep himself in power with the oh my god, the Squid Guys' names. I'm forgetting their names at the current point. And it's just like, yeah, no, Megatron killing him was totally fine. But then you look at the flip side of that, right? You look at Optimus, where it's just all like, hey, what you're doing isn't necessarily wrong. Everybody has a choice to do things. Is killing him really going to solve the issue? Is staining your hands with, technically in this case, Energon, really going to do anything? Because you kill him, right? You do all this revolutionary stuff, but are you capable of filling in that void? This is the argument of Transformers. Megatron is a warrior through and through. In some continuities, not all of them, Megatron is the better fighter than Optimus, but Optimus is the better overall leader. His morals are different, and sure, Optimus fucks up. In the current comics, he's a total fuck up. He's, to be honest, it's in the is it IDW that's doing it right now?
I think
it's Image. No, it's Image. I think it's Image Comics that are doing it. I forget, but it's the one where Optimus has Megatron's like shoulder cannon right now, where he's really fighting for the humans when he realistically probably shouldn't be. So it depends on the continuity, but for the most part, Optimus. This is why Optimus is the good guy, because sure, you can kill Sentinel, but will that actually solve the problem? No. Because under what Megatron's doing, it's going to be totally wrong. So what you have to end up doing, and why I went on that long tangent, is when you look at it like that, right? When you treat a person bad, you got to look at it with very, very, very scrutinous detail. Because sure, to the outside perspective, you might be looking like a dick. But what did that person do to that person? Was it justified? Was it this or was it that? X, Y, and Z. What are the final details? What was that person thinking during that moment? What was that person thinking during the moment? Et cetera, et cetera. So, in my mind, the only way to truly determine if you are a good person is through a series of very, very, very niche litmus tests.
Mhm.
It is the small details. For example, this mini. For the most part, it's half the size of my thumb. But when somebody looks at this, right? Just look at the size of it compared to my skull. Every painter that I have watched in the past 2 weeks has told me if the head is fucked up, one of the most smallest parts, you can't even see it on the camera. It's focusing terribly right now. People will notice it. So, using that for example, when it comes to smaller details about a person, at one point, people will start to notice. Sure, you can act like a dick one time and people can brush it off. But if it's repeated cases, small enough, again and again and again, that's where it shows itself. Example is, I think this is a good one, is the shopping cart. If you don't put away your shopping cart, I'm going to start looking at you. Because
you can assume that person probably isn't good due to that one action.
Yes. And I'm gonna say, like, I'm gonna like point at you and be like, you're a bad person, but it's like it's multiple of those. It's like putting in your chair, doing a kind act every once in a while, or I don't know, of course the shopping cart, or things adjacent to that, like you break something or you pick up your plate, etc., etc.
So what you're saying then would be that, like, in my example of a person doing a lot of bad things but doing one good thing, that in reality that there's more to it than that. Like, that one bad thing that they do does actually reflect in other things that they do.
Yeah. Because it could be like, how do I say it? You do that one bad thing, right? But then all of a sudden you go, wait a minute. What about all the other previous actions you've done? And then it spirals, and then you look deeper into it, like going back to the Megatron thing. Yeah, sure, you killed Sentinel, and you've maybe helped people, but why did you do it? Because eventually you look at his character and you go, oh, D16, technically that's his new name now. It's not like any of the other ones that kind of came up, and I think that's going to be the more popular one, is like, he was mentally unstable. He was clearly not in any condition to be, knighted, to be like, they're not all technically primes, but like a proper transformer in order to, like, rescue everybody. He clearly wasn't. He had clearly, like, I don't want to say mental illnesses. I feel like it's a bit too extreme, but he had problems. So when you look at that example, it's like, sure, you might have helped a few things, but like, did you help out of the kindness of your heart or for your own benefit? This is what a lot of times what separates the hero from the anti-hero. Because what happened recently? Invincible. So this won't happen until season 4, but Mark currently in season 3 just realized, I need to kill villains, because at some point, this is a struggle about heroes. And I think we've talked about this with Spider-Man. It's like, technically Spider-Man would be able to lock all these guys away, but because of plot, they'll always come back. If it was like that and they always came back, the only answer would be to kill. However, in doing that, it shows two things. One, the universe you live in is fucked. And second, how true your morality is. Because he ends up killing some guy who's like basically controlled by like a flood-like entity. But one of his teammates is like, dude, what the fuck? The guy that was being controlled was totally innocent. Like, sure, you solved the problem, but like, you did it terribly. So it's like, did Mark do that because he's a hero, or like he had no options? And in reality, looking at the end of the story, Mark's a terrible hero. He's a terrible person. He's super selfish. So it's just like, all the previous actions that you've ever done in reality were never because you wanted to be a hero. It's because you wanted to be like something, but you never actually wanted to do it. because that was
That
the whole thing. It
that
was this childhood
he's
thing.
more wanting to be an authority figure than an actual hero.
Exactly. So it's like when you look at it like that with a person like, oh, I'm gonna wash the dishes for you. Are you washing the dishes to wash the dishes? Or are you trying to wash the dishes so you can get some? I don't know. Let's just use like a wife and husband example. Like I'll get my pee lick later if I do all these basic tasks.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, do you want the reward or are you just being good to be good? Another example.
That's a good point.
So with Twitter, there's this recurring thing for like, interactions where it's all like, it's not beneficial to be a good person. And of course, the way to, fucking knock that thing out of the park is more or less, if you do good actions and in return you don't want anything, that shows you're good. In wanting something from a good action puts you either in a neutral state or a bad state, because it's like you're not actually really just trying to do this for like yourself or like other people.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like there's clear motives behind it. Now we can even get deeper with this, because what ends up happening is, because of that, the things that you want, does that make you evil? For example, going back to the husband and wife example, it's just, sexual time with your wife. It takes a little convincing between you two, but in the end of that scenario, you both get to play with each other, and in the end, hopefully, you both get your climax, and you do your thing. So it's like, is that really bad?
Mm-hmm.
Now, eventually, you spiral into, well, why did you do it in the first place? Does that go back to a previous, traumatic incident, et cetera, leading us all the way back to the original loop of the two people that we're talking about, or maybe group versus individual, of what is the past history? Where is the trauma? So this is the whole morality argument of like good or evil, or like bad actions versus good actions, et cetera. It gets overly complex. This is why like the battle of morality in like TV shows and video games is so interesting, or like people being redeemed, because it's all like, this is why Red Dead Redemption works, because Arthur and John are, by technically all definitions, terrible people.
Mm-hmm.
Terrible. But through extreme struggle, they can come out of it, and they were redeemed. However, they aren't good. Even though we
Mm-hmm.
see the morality bar, they only ever truly actually hit neutral in reality. Because like,
Well, I don't know if that's entirely true though, because like at some point, like it's the idea, going back to what we said about nature being cruel versus merciful, where nature in its entirety for these characters, in specific Arthur and John Marston, nature was particularly cruel to those two. So their actions reflected the cruelty of that nature. That's what they had to do to survive. Does that make them a bad person? I don't
okay.
think so, because once they kind of figure out like the morally, I guess it is dependent on the player, but I think the canon ending is to always take the moral route with those two.
Yeah, it is.
And so when they take that moral route, they're essentially realizing the mistakes that they've made in the past and owning up to them, which, in my opinion, being able to own up to your own mistakes and rectifying those and trying your best to overcome that person that you were, I think adds to somebody being a good person.
Okay.
Because
Maybe
you can
that wasn't the best
be,
example.
I think overall, this is where like it's complicated. I think any person is always going to be capable of being bad or good,
Oh yeah,
but
100%.
it comes down to that person to determine if they are going to take the actions necessary to be either bad or good.
Yeah.
Because let's say you're faced with a really, really hard decision, like I got to think of something good. Uh, let's say someone kidnapped Nat and was holding her for ransom.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a right way and a wrong way to deal with the perpetrator that
You want to
took
know what my
Nat.
morality in that scenario is?
Kill.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. There's a certain like weird thing, at least with me specifically. I will always try to be the good person, but I'm not like Spider-Man, Superman, or Batman. There's a line that is eventually crossed where it's like, fuck it, gauntlets are off. There's nothing holding me back, and it's carnage. But that's me.
Yeah,
I know
and
not everybody's like,
I think a lot of people, because I even saw it was on a 2020, or was it? It was either Dateline or 2020. I was watching that this lady was escaping a abusive marriage, and the husband ended up coming in, killed his wife, and then shot the roommate that she was staying with, and the roommate ended up surviving and going through an incredibly awful like journey to recovery. Like I think the bullet went straight through her brain, so she had to like relearn how to do every motor skill again, like from scratch.
that's
And
crazy.
like still I think it was she still doesn't have movement of her right arm. And when the guy was finally convicted and sentenced, I think he was given 200 years without parole. And she went on the stand and looked him in the eyes and said, "I forgive you."
That, yeah,
Like
that woman is fucking.
it was crazy. Like
I could never aspire to
that
be
takes a
like that.
lot in a person to do something like that.
Oh yeah. It,
But like I guess at the same time though, if like in that the situation I gave you where it's like somebody brought harm to somebody you cared about, so you brought harm again or to harm to the said person, I don't think anybody would blame you for that either. So I don't think anybody would see any less of you for doing that.
no, it's like with pedophiles. It's like it's always
Yeah.
recently. So there was a guy, right? So this guy murdered like I think like 20 people, right? Okay. So I'm already setting it up for you. What do you think about this person?
Sounds I guess given the conversation I might have to assume that maybe it was I need to know more about who they killed.
He only killed pedophiles, rapists, and mostly male abusers. And he's been
Okay.
in prison in the UK for like years, right? And recently they took away his Xbox, and Twitter was all
No.
like,
Give him
what
his
did you do wrong?
Xbox.
Exactly. Even I said, I was like, the fuck? Why'd you take away his Xbox? This is totally fine. So it was really weird. Going back to the Megatron example, it's like Sentinel needed to be punished. Those people needed to be punished. So it's like, is Megatron really bad? Of course, we know he is because he has other problems. But it's all like you look at him and go, what are the details here? What are the finer stuff? Because it seems he looks like the Punisher, and the Punisher's bad. I know the TV show just came out, and I think my dad thinks it's okay or something, but it's like it's really complex because it's like you took all those lives, but like those guys were all assholes, like probably at the toppest echelon of like actual worst people. Like there's a line here where it's like, what is the difference between good and evil? It's like this area terrible. You are, when it comes to conscious human beings, this is the worst area you could be in. Just bad. So when you kill those said people, it's all like it's only up from there technically, because it's like those are the worst type of people. Like, they really don't benefit society. They overall make things worse. They make more problems than they actually solve. They don't necessarily solve any problems at all, because going back to the Arthur Morgan and John statement, while I do think it is correct, they're either like they end up becoming neutral, or at least seen as neutral for like, as, not through the audience, but as the world, or at least like they're
Well,
neutral to positive.
I think it would be through the audience, because even in the world, there's still going to be, and that's kind of another point I was going to get to, is they're still going to be portrayed as bad in the world because they were outlaws. So and nobody else knows what their story was. So like, take that and then look at like other people that we see in the world that are seen as evil and stuff, and it's like,
so this is
do
where I
we
was
really
going
know
to.
the full story?
So this leads me back into the whole, not nature versus nurture, but like mercy versus cruelty part, where it's all like, the events that led up to that point weren't in their control. Jojo Lanza is actually talking about this. It's kind of a weird parallel, where it's like the absurd events in your life, and John and Arthur's life led them down that point. But we see through the audience, of course, it's like they really didn't have a choice, and they tried their best to eventually become, good. So looking back at the people's example, the real life example, and even like the murderers and stuff, it's like, was it because of their actions, like a third party basically? Was it because of the trauma that person dealt with, because of the third party actually the culprit? Are you actually the bad person, or are you just like negatively affecting people because that's the only way you can deal with the stress? This is basically what in my mind it boils down to, because hate only causes more hate. I think that's the quote, right? Or is
Yeah.
it like slightly different? Or like pain causes more pain. It's like suicide. It's like the pain only transfers. It never actually goes away. So I think it's the same example, where it's like, did the person actually do something bad, and the other guy accusing it is just like having a bad time? It's like, welcome to the world of morality and shit. I gotta shave. I got a whole dark spot down here. Shaving's an ass. It's fucking razors suck.
No.
I'm seeing it. I'm like, I'm not that fat. I'm just fucking. I gotta look like Arthur. Gotta fucking do the thing. I actually been wanting one of those blades where you can just do it with the single thing. I don't know how long they last, but that's not the point.
I don't know either.
But it's going back to the whole morality thing. It's something weird like that. And it goes past religion, because this is something I saw the other day, where it's all like, where do you have morality? Didn't God give it to you? And it's just like, to say that an individual person is only good because an outside force makes them good is kind of a little bit bullshit, at least in my opinion.
Because even looking at what the scriptures say is that God put us on the earth to have the free will to make bad decisions, to do bad things. Like, ultimately, it is down to us if we decide to do something bad.
Yeah.
Like, if I decided at any point in my life, I could decide, you know what? I see that guy right there. I'm going to just punch him in the face. Not for any particular reason other than I want to. I could do that at any point, but I don't. Not because of any, like, there's no force that could drive me to not want to do that other than the fact that I just don't want to.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, if I punch that guy in the face, that will hurt that guy. And he didn't deserve to be hurt. So why would I do that?
But then some people, so this is to counter that point at least a little bit, because nothing that like that can properly exist. There's always a reason. Even the random shit that you might say out loud had a reason. It was just a deep thought that you just blurted out. They just said it. It happens to all of us. So in a moment like that, I remember like that guy that was punching old ladies in NYC a few months ago. It's like he didn't do that randomly, right? There was a motive. Everything has a motive. Like your body has to function on reason, even if it's really, really, really fucking stupid.
But does it even have to function on reason? Because we are, at the end of the day, just animals. And animals don't function on reason. They function on instinct.
So now we enter a little bit of a dual-sided thing here. I think even Nietzsche talks about this. I think where it's all like, where are we animals? Or flip side of that coin, are animals actually really intelligent, but we're just like not on their same wavelength? Because you look at it, right? You look at dolphins, you look at whales, you look at ducks, for example. They all have their reasonings, right? To a certain point. I talked about Nat with this earlier today. I don't know. I was giving fun facts. I'm like, ducks are so fucking horny. They're rapists, basically. And because of that, biologically, the females of the species have a maze vagina to cock block them. So over thousands of millions of years, right? They were just so fucking horny. The females of the species had to cope with it, basically. So it's just like, is that biology, or is it just like a lot of horny ducks just kept on reproducing and eventually caused problems for everybody?
I think it might be that, because it's not exclusive to ducks. Like, we look at a duck and we say, wow, ducks are rapists, but it's like, yeah, but humans are also rapists. They're rapist humans.
So here's another one. So dolphins, right? We see them probably as one of the more intelligent species on the planet. They like to get high. So eventually a big argument you can make is, do they get high because they don't know what's exactly going on, or do they get high because, just like, we'll use me for example, I like to get high because I think it's fun. Because it's fun and my brain recognizes that and I like to have a good time with it. Could you indicate that of higher intelligence, but at a different level? So it's like, is it actually animal acting out of instinct, or are they just doing it to do it? Or you can start getting really, really, really like scientific into it and be like, well, technically all creatures have their own levels of intelligence. We're just at such a fucking high echelon that by proxy, everything below us looks stupider, but that might not be the case. It might be just like they do their own thing. They have their habits, their personalities. You see this with dogs all the time. Some dogs like attention. Some dogs don't like attention. Some dogs love to see a newborn baby, while others could give less than a fuck about it. Cats work the same way. I've seen cats who are extremely personable. They like to be pet. They like to be held. I've seen other cats who have gone through emotional abuse look at you, look you up and down, and go, I'm just going to do this and I'm going to walk away. So it's like, you have to start looking at it at like a really crazy level, basically almost borderline nerdy, or just straight up nerdy, to be like, is it instinct, or is this a different intelligence that I'll argue that is below us that we can't recognize anymore? Because look what we're doing right now in this moment. We are making philosophical arguments of good and evil, and then being like, well, clearly there's a nature part of it, but then there's like a human morality part of it that's making this complex, and then like another part of the triangle where it's like, well, now it's human trauma that kind of have these mixed together up here, but then it's like, it's just a ever casting circle. So it's just like, welcome to the fucking Thunderdome. It's confusing as hell now, because now you have to deal with all those arguments.
I guess maybe the difference lies within this, is that maybe what humans have that other biological species don't have is that we care to look further into why these things exist.
I'll double down. Ravens, I think, are more intelligent than we give them credit for. They're one of my favorite
They
animals.
definitely are.
And they clearly know how to hate. It's clearly obvious. So I would argue if they know how to hate and like and are able to distinguish person from person, like we are able to distinguish from dog to dog, that we as a species looking at us look so deep into things that it's borderline supernatural or like super. I guess supernatural would have been technically the correct term, but like not in like a spiritual sense. It's just like the joke of like, on TikTok, it'd be like, oh, the alien species tries to come and fight us, but like our adrenaline is like our unique thing, and they're not able to fight us because if they lose a limb, it's like, oh, they're gonna die. But if we lose a limb, it's like, fuck it, we just gained a 20 times boost to like our body, and we're able to beat them. So like it'd be the other way around. That it would be like we just think in just a very unique and way too complex way, probably to our detriment. I'm going to be honest, that
Or
it leads us down this weird pathway. It's kind of a double-edged sword.
I guess that even saying it's to our detriment creates its own moral conflict on its own, because if we didn't have these sort of moral compasses, what kind of society would we be? Because if then we didn't have the moral compasses, then we'd be no better than the animals. And then what kind of animal species would humans be like? Would we be like the ducks who are serially rapists? Or would we be a more tamer would we be any different than we are now?
Would we? So here's a big thing. Would we even be in this scenario to begin with? Because now you have to argue that because of this, like, morality, right? I haven't even gone to the fear section, but the morality of it is like, because we are able to regret or do certain actions, does it predetermine us to go somewhere else? Like, you know what I'm talking about? Now we're getting really esoteric. It's funny. It's weird. It's really, I feel like Joe Rogan right now, bro. Like, I feel like, this is weird, Jamie.
So I guess here's where we'll kind of loop it back to the original idea. Is do you think that the amount of empathy that a person shows is a determining factor of whether or not they are a good person? Because let's look at it this way. Let's say there's a guy who loves every single person he has ever come across, is just nice to everyone. But there's one person that they absolutely hate for no reason, and they make that person's life miserable.
So I have a problem with that, because I have to go back to my original statement of, I don't think anything exists by itself.
That there's a predetermined factor that he hates that person for a reason.
There has to be, even to a degree of, I don't like your nose. It has to be something really fucking stupid. Really fucking stupid. Because I'm petty. I'm really petty. I could tell you about an incident that recently happened with me and my girlfriend and another individual, but my morality was checked, right? And I had to come clean to Nat and be like, sometimes I haven't been the best. While I love Superman, Spider-Man, all the morally good characters, right? I've tried to learn from them over my 23 years of living. I'm playing with dice, by the way.
I'm playing with a lens cap.
And I have like the fucking like TikTok like deep philosophical songs playing in the background too. Oh, sorry, I'm going on a tangent, but it's like, that person made me question my morality, and even Nat. And what we ended up determining as a couple is, I'm not the problem. That person clearly, through her past traumas, that being boyfriends and fathers, is not not the best person you should take advice from. And I told Nat this, but I think it has never come up in her life, that she's never realized it, that like there are some times where there is a thing as bad advice. And this person, for whatever reason, me and Nat have had our little scuffles every once in a while, our little, like, not morality debates, but like our wants and our desires being met, right? Long distance, it happens. And that person had ended up saying, through a very long argument of being like, why don't you just break up? And Nat was, really, really adamant about that idea. And she came to me, and she didn't tell me this until like a few days after the fact, but it's the reason why she was acting like pessimistic and mean. But because of my girlfriend's own traumas and stuff, she was natural to that. Because I'm not gonna give all my girlfriends, details of her life in order here, but she's dealt with a lot. So being naturally negative because of the cruelty of the world just means that sometimes that she wants to act out like that. Of course, I recognize that and I'm able to figure that out. But and me and her, through talking, realized, hey, I'm not a bad guy. You're not a bad guy. We're just human. We act to our own natures. But then we were able to determine that, like, hey, she's not the best person to be getting advice from. And sometimes we aren't too. Sometimes I think I give bad advice.
I think everybody is capable of giving bad advice every once in a while. It just happens.
However, through all of that, I'm petty. I have a reason to hate that bitch now. I'm just going to say it like it is. Because it's all like, you told my girlfriend to break up with me?
How dare
Alex?
You? How dare you?
What did I do? And my girlfriend, she's in town right now, and we've been able to like talk like face to face, and she's like, man, that girl was fucking dumb as rocks. I like you too much. We were cuddling earlier and laughing and talking. So looping back into it, looking back at that person, I never hated that other girl before. I knew about her story and I said, oh, that sucks. And, her life ended up becoming better or whatever. And I go, that's cool. But she left my mind. Didn't matter. This woman, right? This woman that gave bad advice. Never needed to hate her. Now I do, because it's like, clearly your own past traumas are affecting people way outside your circle. So when I look at this random guy randomly hating now, it doesn't make sense to me. You can't just hate on a person, because there's always something attached to it. I would find it more realistic if that guy, if this guy's like morally good or whatever, upstanding person, like 99% morally good on the radar, like near Jesus, right? But then he hates this guy for no random reason. It doesn't make sense to me, because it'd be like, you have to be resentful to hate. So that's where my thing comes in. It has to be something like that.
Just given that, with that knowledge that you have, is that person a bad person?
Of the girl or the random guy?
No, the random dude that I made in the scenario.
No.
He's not a bad person.
No. Because
okay.
Okay. There's a difference between hating a person, like you found them annoying, or you just don't like them for X, Y, and Z reason. It could be for a very dumb reason. It could be, back looking at the nose, I just don't like your nose, right? But they've always kept them to themselves and they never interacted with that person. Like, it depends on the reason to hate, right? Or the actions you do to said person. Because if that one chick, right, just said, he's just, your boyfriend's weird or something, right? I would have been like, whatever, brush it off. I wouldn't have been as petty as I am now. But the level she was hating on and then told my girlfriend made me, by proxy, hate even harder. So looking at this random guy, for example, we're just making here in this scenario, made up guy. If he just hates him for one reason but never really tells on him or like ever really confronts him about it, I'm not really going to judge all his like 99 good morale points, right? Because it's just not like, oh, you're just just an odd quirk, you know. Superman's had one, Batman's had one, Spider-Man's had one, you know. Even Jesus had one, you know. He went to the temple in Jerusalem and wrecked shit because he was all like, why is there a market here? This is bullshit. God never said to do this. So even Jesus has had moments where it's like, did you really need to wreck down all those people's shops? You could have probably told them to be like, hey, get the fuck out, you know, before God does something, you know, the guy who should be doing the vengeance. But like, you know, Jesus
I think in that scenario, he was morally justified given the fact that
yeah.
they were literally selling at a place that they should not be.
Yeah, no, but like looking at the outside perspective, right? The Jews got used to this,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just like, you know, a mother of like 5 kids goes to that place to, you know, buy their milk, grain, you know, whatever, and now Jesus got rid of it. So like to a certain point, you know, he might be the Messiah, but it's like, hey, you got rid of my fucking $5.99 fucking milk. What the fuck? Now they're outside of the city, and now they're costing more. So it's like, you know, it's a reason to hate yet again. It's like, oh fuck, I lost all my dice.
All right, I'm gonna throw two more curveballs at you, to wrap things up. So I'll throw this one at you first, just to wrap up this random dude scenario. Is so you say that despite the 99% of people that he's nice to, that this one person that he's not nice to still makes him a good person.
Yeah, because unless he's like stabbing the guy because he hates him, I'm not going to be like, yeah, you're a dickhead. You're clearly not good. Right.
So this one person that he doesn't like, the only thing that he does to make him not like him is that he, I guess we'll say, he just chews his food a little too loud sometimes. And that compounded to make it so that literally every single aspect of this person makes this guy angry. That he will, essentially, he's bullying this guy.
Okay.
That this is a bully scenario. That this bully picks on this guy all the time. But that's the only person he ever does that to.
Okay. Hold on, I'm choosing music in the background. In my head, I would think that to a certain degree, that if a really petty reason like that were to exist, to eventually end up hating that person to the point you now hate everything about their personal qualities, is fucked up. That I would say, now on a morality chart, it's fucked up. That's that I pointed out and be like, you're being a dickhead. So I wouldn't say he's a bad guy by any means. I'm not saying he's morally evil, right? It's still, if we're looking at this analytically, which I think might be a little bit wrong, is he's still good, right? But like, you know, the one guy is like, hey, kind of like if there was a meter, it's like it's nearly 100, right? But like the way you act towards him kind of drops it down a few pegs, which I think at that point, like Alex thinking, kind of just makes you normal.
But
because I don't think there is anybody that pure.
But let's take this back to what you said earlier. Does that guy's action of being so terrible to this guy then reflect on any other action that he's done? Like, is he only nice to everybody else because those people haven't found a reason to make him angry yet?
So that's a different story now, because now we're adding personality. Because before he was a blank slate, never didn't know anything about him. So now, then yes, you were right. It now we have to question everything.
But like, isn't that question arising initially just from the fact that he is hating on this person so much?
One could say yes, but the other could, vice versa. It could just be absurdity.
Mm.
That the chewing was so fucking annoying, right? It annoyed the fuck out of him to the
But
point.
like, it bothered no one else, just him.
It's weird. It's you really get into your you really get into your philosophy bag with this question. No personality, and it's just like that. Just pet peeve that's been petted.
Mm-hmm.
Got to such a point to that happens. It's like I'm not really gonna question everything, but if it's to the point where, for whatever reason, this guy's living an entire life where nobody's ever annoyed him, and that's the point, and now everything by proxy has to be questioned, I would then argue it's a tough case to make, right? Because like we know the history of like he's clearly a good guy because he's liked everybody, he's done everything for them, every good guy trait. You could say this one detail, emphasization here. One detail is going to be really, really hard to make the case of now he's a bad guy because of it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if it's he does this to 5 people, now you have a different case, and now it's like, okay, wait a minute, were you ever actually the good guy? Because to become a true villain, right? I guess maybe this is the point we were missing. To be a true villain, you don't ruin one person's life. You ruin everybody's life.
But then what does that say about people who do bully in school then? Or like bully in general?
Well, I think it's kind of, God, I can't believe I'm bringing Warhammer fucking into this. I was reading recently in Flight of the Eisenstein, where a character, for basically most of his life, up until the betrayal of Horus, basically believed the Emperor of Mankind was not a god, but he was just really crazy powerful. Then a newly, I think she's eventually going to end up becoming a priest, basically eventually argues to Nathaniel, the space marine who thought, there is no god, that all the events that have transpired are not on paper, they're through action. And what the Emperor represents and what he can do with his power is basically a god. So through all that example and him being right in front of us, even if he denies it, is a god. So looking at all the details, right, at the person being a bully, he's not a villain because we know what bullying is, right? We know the details. We know where all the the bullying, the powers of the deities come from. Using the emperor and the bully for example, we know where it's coming from. It's like family trauma, bad upbringing. He's not a villain. We know the difference, and especially in Warhammer, you know the difference between somebody who is evil and somebody who's really fucking evil. So I'm not going to say a bully's a bad person because it's just trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody who
most of the time,
somebody who commits some fucked up actions, like I mean some fucked up shit, is evil. Like they've gone down a path that is so inarguably like not debatable that's like, yeah, you killed X, Y, and Z people, right? You did all these evil actions, right? I'm trying to bring up a villain.
but is it not in itself evil to ruin one person's life just because you find their existence to be an annoyance to you?
It's evil. It's bullying. But you're not Doctor Doom, right? I think just like goodness, right? If we're looking at the scale, you can be 99% good, but then you can reach 0. But then you can also reach negative 99, which basically, in my mind, right, would be near total ultimate evil. Straight on some Dio shit. We know that Dio came from a traumatic background, but because of the traumatic background, he ended up quite literally sacrificing his humanity to become the most evil motherfucker in JoJo's. So, sure, you can ruin Jonathan's life and you can be an asshole and, probably, at least in this scenario, closer to the evil spectrum than most. You're like in neutral to like right here. But like sacrificing your humanity and then eating and pleasuring yourself with women with no consent basically fucking froze you here, right? So Dio was already in a bad spot, but this guy hating, sure, he's gonna be a dick and I'm gonna look at him different, but like, he's still right here, right? He's not neutral or fucking Dio level, right?
Yeah.
So like, I'm gonna say he's an asshole, right? I think there's levels to it, there's rankings to it, but
Well,
I'm not
I
gonna
like
say
comparing him to a like somebody who's done multiple awful, horrible things to many different people is, I think, an unfair comparison for him. Like, because, like, it's like when you're stacking sins, like, Dio did all these terrible things to multiple people, but if you stacked up like all those crimes that he committed to this that all these people, like, to just put like for each crime that he committed, just compile them into one list, and then you stack that against this other guy's list. Let's say he did like just brutalize this person, made their life miserable. When you look at the crimes, they're pretty close at that point.
I think, okay, so this is where my argument then would be, it's the volume. Sure, you might have okay, to put it like this, you could have done everything to this loud chewing person, right? Every crime imaginable, right? Pretty fucking big list. That would put you way down the fucking bar, right? But what Dio did was to all of that to one person multiplied I don't know how many fucking times. It's really like that whole bread statement Zappelli like makes and Dio goes or Dio says to Zappelli is like really magnified. That's probably one of the greatest like setups for your villain ever. So it's like that the person the hypothetical person we're talking about is like getting lower on the chart, right? But when you compare him to somebody like Dio, the volume is like so much more dramatic compared in comparison. Like, sure, at that point, what you're describing to me is removing the goalposts. Of course, that's what you've been doing the whole time. But it's like he's becoming worse, right?
Yeah.
But then when you look at negative 99, right, you have to be fucking terrible. It's not one person. It's hundreds of thousands of people. And then on top of that, you're making other people do wrong things because of your actions. So it's like morally correct guy is now like, going down the list, but there are worser levels, I would say. I don't think it's necessarily correct in the Bible to say like all sins are equals in God's eyes. I feel like it's a bit wrong. Like, I'm going to be honest. Pickpocketing is on the same level as some other heinous shit I'm not going to say on cam is kind of egregious to me because, you haven't really described the morally right guy here as being like ultimate terrible to this one individual. It just sounds really petty for the most part until like you say, and then he died. It's like crazy.
Well, in reality, that the person whose their life is being made miserable by this other person does sometimes end up killing themselves. Like, that's the reality of the situation. Is that happens.
So now, okay, now we got to that point. So it's now the bullying got to the point where now they end it. So I guess this is just one giant morality test for me. This is all this video is. You're just giving morality test. I'd say at that point, right, on that list, now I want to clarify, we've progressively, as Caleb has stacked against this guy, right, giving me more information, we have now crossed from good to neutral to basically evil. Right, we've now done it. I think your first killing puts you at -1. Is what I'm gonna say. All before this, right? I would say, I guess you're a nice guy, or at least you do good actions, right? But behind the scenes, looking at all of that, now everything has to be questioned. Now you've killed the guy. Now it's just like, okay, now you're a total asshole. You've entered the red. You are now many steps, but still infinitely closer to -99 than you were to +99. So it's like you are officially, evil, or at least really bad. Is how
All
I would
right.
phrase it.
Here's where I'm gonna throw the final curveball at you.
Okay.
Is given I think this was a good transition point from talking about this imaginary guy that I created. Is do we often give the benefit of a doubt to people that we are familiar with when it comes to morality? Because I'll say it like this, because in this scenario, you only knew this guy as being a good person, and to your knowledge, the only thing he ever did was mildly inconvenience this one person. But those mildly inconveniences, without you knowing, did compound into something worse that did end up ruining that person's life.
Yeah. I have to think about the one meme where it's all like, he was a great guy, an amazing guy. What about the murders? What about them?
What about him?
So, to answer your question through that meme, yes, I do think we give the benefit of the doubt. That's why when somebody murders somebody, it's like, oh my God, I never thought he would do that. Right? Because you only ever know the surface level about any given person. I never knew what Nat was going through when I met her in high school. No fucking shot. There's no way I would have been able to predict her life. There's no fucking way. I would have immediately got all those questions wrong. So, if anything, what we've done in this scenario is you've just made a realistic murder case. That's all you've done. You just knew the basic person, and as you slowly drip fed me the info, it's like, so yeah, by the end of it, he was an evil dickhead. All of his good actions, I hope I don't sound contradictory throughout this entire thing because of it, is even though he did all those good actions, big or small, it's like you still eventually took a life away for a very petty reason. Like if he killed this guy or eventually drove this guy to insanity because of maybe that guy was actually more of a dickhead, right? Or something, I would argue differently. But from what you've told me, the information you've gave me, yeah, he's a dickhead. Basically evil. He's entered the red zone. Is what I would say. So I'm gonna guess from what you've been asking me is you've probably thought about this all day or however long this is.
Pretty much.
And you're wondering if the person that you knew is a dickhead.
Not anyone in particular, but it's just something that I've was kind of gleaming over. That it's like, because I've met a lot of people and interacted with a lot of people, and each of them have had various moral standings. In example, that manager at Arby's.
That guy was fucking weird.
Had an absolutely detestable moral standing.
I'll give him a -10 on the
It, and I at that time, I being young when he first was making his mistakes and said he was gonna rectify those, I gave him the benefit of the doubt because I was like, I truly believe that he could change his life and make it for the better. And that benefit of the doubt was proven wrong because he proceeded to do worse things.
Yeah.
So I guess that kind of brings me to this point because I view you as a good person.
I try to be.
And I'd assume you would also view me as a good person given the fact that you spend a majority of time with me. So my question is, do we only view each other as good people because we're just good friends? Or are we genuinely actually good? Because a majority of the time that I get told I'm a good person by other people, I'm like, so am I actually good? Or do you just say that because my presence, like, you're comfortable with my presence because you are familiar with me?
Good way you phrase that. Look, that could be said for a lot of people around the world. Everybody thought Diddy was cool until he wasn't.
See?
So,
Like,
technically that might be wrong because his starting point, that might be actually not a good. That might be a good point. Maybe like, Michael Jackson might be.
Like, you can see a person every single day and grow a bond to them. But do you actually believe that they're a good person? Do you actually know if they are good?
If you had asked me this question a few weeks ago, I would have said yes. But as of recently, I'm not going to get into further detail about it because it's not my story. At one point, the other person will break the discomfort somehow.
Mm-hmm.
A Freudian slip is what they call it.
Or break the comfort, you mean?
Yes, a Freudian slip where they will do something because it is part of their truer nature.
Okay.
So I think you are a good person because I've known you for 7 years and you have
10.
At least, fuck, son of a bitch. 10 years at this point, and you have you haven't wronged me. And I don't think you've wronged anybody else. I haven't heard anybody talk shit about you. So through basic observation with me being friends with you and then the environment you're around and I'm usually around in would dictate, not fully confirm that fact. Remember, we are in the same environment, so that would therefore mean that like it might not be a totally accurate place to call it. So this is technically about, shaky, technically.
Mm-hmm.
I would say you'd be a good person. But I do think at one point, if you are truly an asshole, right, that true nature will show because in comfortability, we start acting more like ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
For example, here, when I'm with my girlfriend, I'm not like this. I'm usually like, and I'm all giddy like a 5-year-old. I act like a child, completely, utterly. Nat knows it very well. But when I'm with you, I'm like this, stoic philosopher. Where's my pipe? The morals of good and evil. So it's different. Mm-hmm. So I would argue that humans' faces blend for every scenario possible, and at one point the mask will eventually dissolve and you have to be comfortable because under recent events I will not get into with other people I knew, it's like eventually your actions will show that you're a dickhead eventually at some point. Now
I think I'd agree with that too because on my end of the scale, I don't think I've ever seen you do anything like out of malice towards anyone.
Stupidity, yes.
Stupidity, I've definitely seen it, but you've never done it specifically to harm another person.
Yeah.
So I think in that case, makes you a good person. And I think by proxy, my belief is if you are capable of showing a majority of the time empathy, like if you are empathetic and capable of being empathetic to everyone, I think that determines whether or not you're a good person.
I'd phrase it this way. This is the Alex's take. If you can regret and feel bad for your action, more likely than not, you're probably a good person. For the most part. Regret
Yeah.
is a very interesting emotion.
It's a strong one.
Because that shit can hurt you eventually. Because
Mhm.
of how much, like, how bad
Guilt.
you feel.
Guilt.
Guilt sucks. It hurts. But if this is a good one right here. This is getting to the war stuff I like. I had a little period in my life where I really got into the Iraq war. And there are cases where soldiers did some fucking heinous ass shit. Bad. And they don't regret it. They don't give a flying fuck at all. But then there's other soldiers who go, I wasted my life and my time there. And I feel sorry. That right there shows to me at its highest form, guilt shows at least to a minimum, right? Where you are, at least in the on the morality scale I've been using to scale, like you're here, you're like it's neutral and then like +5 to -5. It shows at least that much of your true personality. Now, no, I'm just saying this as of right now. Eventually, it could change in the future. But 22-year-old Alex goes like, guilt shows about that much of what your true personality is. So that's what I would say. So as long as you feel bad after some amount of time, I think it can show you. It can be the steps to show you whether or not that person is good or at least not a total dickhead. So on the lower scale of the good side. Now, if you don't feel that at all, and it's just like carnage and remorse, blood and guts, and just rage, you're clearly on the other side of that, or malice to even a higher extent. If you still hate the motherfucker for any said actions, like later and so X, Y, and Z, past the said event, man, you might be an asshole, or you like. So this is a real good one. This one, if you find joy in evil, like
Oh, that's like a guarantee. Like you're terrible at that point.
Like actions, you would go. It's like this is a good example. Like hunting, there is the feeling of hunting something big and accomplishing that, but if you don't pay your respects to it, it's odd. People find it odd. Because most of the time, if you ask most hunters how they feel after they kill something, they go, I took a life, even if it's an animal. And I have to respect it. It's the respect.
Yeah.
But there's some people who kill and they don't have that respect. So like stuff like that. I know that's a pretty like a very egregious example, a really big one.
No,
But
I think that's actually a good example. Like that I think that is one way to really tell if somebody's a good person is how they treat animals.
Oh yeah.
Because if they'll treat an animal with respect, then there's a higher likelihood that they'll treat people with respect.
Did I ever tell you the time I went and saved Nat's dog?
You did. We made a whole episode about it.
We did. It's kind of funny looking back at that. My girlfriend forgets moments like that, but then when I remember, she goes, "Fuck." I told her when we got face to face about the whole thing, when we talked about it, she went, Fuck that girl I was talking to. Fucking sucked ass. Son of a bitch. I went all around on foot looking for Marley. And at one point I was like, fuck, man, I'm not gonna find her. And by the fucking skin of my fucking teeth, I found her. Just fucking roaming around. So it was crazy. So it's just like, I don't know. If you want to look at me morally from that, I fucking put on, I remember it too. I remember this is maybe people looking at me for my morality check. I remember Nat talking about it and her being really sad. And I had two choices. I remember saying it to myself, right? I was sitting right here after I got done calling her, and I said, I could either play video games. I think I was playing Red Dead at the time. I might have been. Or I can go out and use my free will to go find the dog. At least try, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I sat there, right? And a part of me, right, was like, I want to play video games. But then the little guilt guy started
But you're
talking
like,
to me.
what? Something could happen to the dog.
And I was like, no, at least go try, Alex, right? At least the deeper part of me said that. And I went and did it, and I found Marley. So if that was my biggest morality check of my life, I think I'd be pretty on the positive side. I have my moments. I can get pretty hateful. But I think for the most part, I scale like myself at like maybe like a 50, a plus 50 on the good scale.
I think that is just part of human nature, though. It just happens.
Yeah.
But I guess the moral of the episode, if we can give it a moral, is to we always talk about looking critically into literature and stuff, but always look critically into the people around you as well. Because without doing that, you not only could cause yourself problems, but also you could be allowing another person to extend their problems to a point where they go down a path that they could have been prevented from going down.
Yeah. Nat's about to go to sleep. We were yapping for too long. I think you always make a choice. I think just like how hate can make hate, I think what would we say the opposite of hate is?
The opposite of hate is love. Because hate would be like every ounce of your being cannot stand something, and the thought and sight of that thing just ruins your day. Yeah. Whereas on the flip side of that, you see something that you love, it makes your day so much better. And that when you think of that thing and see that thing,
I just did it.
It makes you happy.
You caught it on camera. I thought of Nat and I started giggling. You can see it in the moment. Zoom in. You see me smiling.
But that's truly the difference between those two.
Yeah. I think if you love... Hold on. I'm going to say it like this. I think it's easier to replicate hate than it is to replicate love. But as long as you keep loving, by proxy, eventually somebody's going to have the same thought as you and go, sitting here is not the best option. Like, yeah, I could do it.
Mm-hmm.
But I probably should go get up and go save that dog.
Yeah.
I think that applies to a lot of things. So I guess that's my final take.
All right. I think that's pretty much it for this episode. I hope you guys took something out of this. Because, yeah, I don't know. It was an interesting discussion.
I can't wait to find out who the fuck this whole argument stemmed from after the podcast.
But it's crazy. But anyway, that's it for this week's episode. Tune in for the season finale next week. And we'll go from there. Thanks for watching. See you guys next time. Peace out.
Deuces.